So we're saying our next talk is about financial inclusion and empowerment. And we have a stellar panel. So I want to welcome the moderator of the panel. He's an advisor at MONI. He's been a chief retail and federation on apps, and for some time he was the entrepreneur in residence for Pioneers X from the Pioneers Festival fame. So please welcome our moderator, Bernino Lin. Bernino, come here. And let's invite our panelists that are going to join you in the panel. So please welcome David Moreno of Coowry. Please applause Agustín Vitórica, co-founder and co-CEO of Gawa Capital. Adam Neff, CEO from Ledge. And finally, last but not least, Sergio Balcells, CEO of JobToday.
Thank you. Yeah, so let's just start out by just zooming out a little bit, talking about financial inclusion and empowerment. A couple of framing points, let's call it. When we look at financial inclusion, in the past, let's say, where does it come from? Aid and helping out people to live their lives. We've seen in the past lots of donations. We've seen in the past, food being shipped out to people who need something. We've seen in the past blankets, this and that, and such kind of things. In the last 15 years or something like that, a new trend has arisen, which is basically driving the same aid and the same leading to financial inclusion by saying, well, people who need some sort of development, why don't we do what we do in our own countries, which is to build up markets, which is to basically give the power of spending money and letting people decide what is it that they need to spend their money on. So in this panel today, we have the companies and the platforms trying to make that a reality in terms of, first of all, payment systems. How do you receive money? How do you spend money? Second of all, where do you get money from? So having employment or having access to liquidity, either by equity investments or debt investments. And so that's how we're going to spend the next 30 minutes. So I'd like to start out just one by one of you to just give a 60-second pitch or something like that. Everyone is an entrepreneur, so as to understand each of your platforms. Why don't we start out with you, David?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm David. I'm the CEO of Coowry. Coowry is micropayment solutions. Essentially, what we do is we convert mobile airtime into a digital currency. Mobile airtime is the most similar thing to actually cash. When you look at micropayments is a very difficult, easy to do because commissions are really high. The only thing that really works is cash. The problem with cash is that it's not digital. And airtime is the most similar. So what we do is we convert this airtime into cash and allow us to do transactions without commissions, in real time, enabling a lot of people that don't have financial tools, they don't have credit cards, they don't have any of these financial tools, to access the digital economy, to actually be able to purchase.
I'm Agustín Vitórica, co-founder and co-CEO of Gawa Capital. We're an impact investing firm with over 50 million of euros of assets under management. We invest basically in financial institutions that provide access to finance to micro-entrepreneurs, to SME companies, or in general, financial inclusion for education, for affordable housing. Anything that has a financial inclusion angle, we can invest. We've done 50 investments so far, mainly in Latin America and South Asia. And our goal is to produce not only a measurable impact, but basically transform our investees so that the impact they make in the low-income population that we target can actually increase throughout the life of the investment. So for that, we use an impact management system.
Hi, my name is Adam Neff. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ledge. Ledge is an instant credit gateway that makes it simple to integrate smart financing options into existing web, mobile, and point-of-sale experiences we partner with a range of top alternative lenders, and the goal is to provide kind of like a kayak style experience, but with this Stripe type integration that's available to developers and can be white labeled for a range of different partners.
Hi, I'm Sergio Balcells. I'm the CEO of Spain of JobToday. And JobToday is basically the leading European app in recruitment for the blue-collar sector. So not for the white-collar, which is the people on LinkedIn, but for hospitality and all these sectors. And what we do, basically, is allow people to connect job seekers, basically, with employers in a geolocalized way, in an efficient way, via chat. So we are basically reducing the time of hiring hugely from several days to a few hours, and someone can find a job in our app in a few hours. And that's why we are here, because in the end we empower people and we let people be financially included, because we believe at JobToday that the first thing you need to be financially independent is to have a job, and that's what we provide, jobs in less than 24 hours.
And then finally, I'll participate a little bit in the panel, even though I'm also the moderator. Since I come from MONI, we bank refugees and other unbanked individuals in Europe, so as to drive financial inclusion and giving them a means to receive money for work or donations or what it could be, and a means to spend money to be included in society. Okay, so starting out with you, Agustín, can you just, when you're working with micro enterprises and small and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs, do you have some feeling from all the deal flow you see and so on? What are the kind of obstacles such companies have in their situations, and also what is it the impact that your credits or equity investments provide?
Yeah, well, I mean the challenge for micro or SMEs companies to access financing traditionally has been because they are asking for low ticket sizes. A lot of these MSMEs are located in rural areas, so the transaction cost for traditional banks to reach them is too much. So banks try to get higher tickets, and make their profits with a smaller number of operations. While these kind of institutions that we target are very intensive in labor cost, and basically they have to open branches in rural areas close to where these people are. For SMEs, it's especially challenging because for micro entrepreneurs, you can basically provide a commodity microcredit, but for SMEs, you need to design the product in the way that it works for that specific SME of that specific sector. So in terms of the impact, to make sure that we got an impact, and this was very important for our investors from the beginning. Our investors are looking for a financial return, but want the same security that they're making a social return, with the same security or third-party auditing that they have with the financial return. So for that, we created an impact management system by which we start with a social audit of our investee, and we identify weaknesses of their social performance management, and we agree with management how those weaknesses are going to be improved throughout the life of the investment. And we include those improvements as covenants, as what we call social covenants, in our investment agreements. We measure how those improvements are implemented, and at the end of the investment, we have a third-party auditor basically verifying how those improvements have taken place, and basically calculates an impact score that determines our management fees. So for our investors, if we do poorly in terms of social impact, we don't get much money, but if we make a strong social impact, then we can make much more money.
Interesting stuff. So just going into one note for everyone to think about, MSMEs in any country on the planet is the pumping heart of the economy. It's between 60 to 70% of all employment that is provided by MSMEs. So as we hear it from you, and I want to have your thoughts on it as well, Adam, from you, Agustín, if the heart of the economy, the SMEs, have a difficult access to either credits or equity investment, so to liquidity, well, we could talk about financial inclusion being job creation, being employment, and if the MSMEs do not have access to this liquidity, to be maybe ahead of the revenue curve in terms of some investments they need to do, upgrading their machinery for production companies, whatever, then we have a problem. So I'd like to hear your point on that, Adam. How does a platform like LetMe, how does that potentially solve transactional cost and so on?
Yeah, so I think that, you know, when you look at financing, especially as you get into MSMEs, you get into countries that don't have established credit systems, established scoring systems, and where you may have rural populations that aren't really served by established brick and mortar branches. You have kind of two issues, as I see it. You have a user experience problem in that you could go out and build a lot of physical branches or send agents out in the field to interact with these people and, you know, get them access to credit, but that's very inefficient and it just doesn't work in a lot of cases. But these people pretty much all already have mobile devices, and so if you can provide a user experience that allows you to capture the data through the devices that they already have, and find ways to verify the data and work with different lending partners to actually provide capital through those channels, that, you know, is significant in terms of solving the user experience problem. I think on the data and scoring problem, it's just hard because, you know, even in the US, which has FICO, you're starting to see that increasingly a lot of younger people, and, you know, this has been a persistent problem for expatriates who, you know, immigrate from Spain to the US and they don't have an established credit score. Actually getting the data that you need to underwrite is really important. And so we work with lending partners. We don't get into the underwriting side, but we do work on the data collection side. So for example, imagine SME owner who's using a prepaid debit card, which is a pretty popular platform in developing markets, and they're using it, you know, basically as their banking account for everything related to their business. What we would aim to do is actually be able to deliver sort of, you know, qualified metadata derived from transactional data tied to that card to enable lenders to make better underwriting and financing decisions. So I think it's kind of a twin problem. It's how do you provide a user experience that really, you know, works for that underserved population, and what criteria do you use to effectively underwrite them?
And so to just sum up, in order to drive more financial inclusion, we really need to have private sector participation in developing payments infrastructure, the data for credit scoring, and platforms on which money can be lent out. So I want to go for David, please. Your platform, it's in that field. What are your thoughts on how can we roll out maybe different types of payment platforms?
Okay. Well, actually, when you go to emerging markets, what you find there is countries with a huge population. I mean, talking Indonesia is 250 million, Philippines 100 million, Brazil, Mexico. All these countries are really big countries. Very interestingly, most of the people in this country are very young. I mean, 35 years is, 70% of the population is below 35. So there is a very young population there in these countries. They are all very much in the digital economy. So they are consuming digital content constantly. So they are logging into Twitter, they have Facebook accounts, they are watching video, they are there in the digital economy. Most of them, they already have smartphones. So they have everything actually to get into the digital economy, to actually move into this field. But we forgot one thing, it's payments. Most of the people in these countries, they don't have a bank account. Less have a credit card. So for these people that are really there in the digital economy, it's impossible to actually buy something in the internet. It's impossible. And this is interesting. I mean, we really forgot this bit. It's incredible when you go to, I don't know, one of our merchants, his most popular payment method is they have different shops in Jakarta. This is in Indonesia. People go there with their motorbikes, they get a ticket, they're selling games, and with this ticket, they go to the website and they redeem the game. So it's really complex actually to make payments. And then on top of that, we go into micropayments, which when you go to the digital economy, most of the thing has to do with micropayments. You pay for $1, $2, very small amounts. And this is not solved, not in the emerging markets, not in the developed markets. I mean, the commissions when you are doing small payments are huge. I mean, if you are buying something for $1, the commission can be from 25 up to 50%. It's very difficult to build a sustainable business with these kind of commissions. And this is not really solved. So how do we address the problem here? Well, we look at it, and as I said before, we convert the mobile airtime, which 40,000 million people have it, and they know what to do with it, into a currency. So this enables us to do a payment solution which is commission-free. That means I buy something for 50 cents, the merchant gets 50 cents in airtime, that is 50 cents, which is very important for them. I mean, it's not 25 cents, and they get it in real time, and they can do a lot of things with this airtime. So that is essentially what we do. And not only just enable payments, we also enable people how to get paid. Because you go to these countries, and there's a lot of people, and they've got a lot of assets that they cannot really monetize. I mean, they've got skills, they've got time, they've got talent, and they cannot really monetize these activities because it's very difficult to pay for them. However, for example, one of our main partners in Philippines is people, young people. Philippines speak very good English, so they are able to curate content for companies in Europe and in the States. They curate content, they moderate message boards, they do all these kind of activities. But the problem is, how do I pay this person? This person is in the middle of Philippines. How do I pay them? There is no way actually to pay them. I mean, if it's difficult to buy, imagine to pay someone from Europe or from the States in Philippines $5, $2 for their contribution. That is totally impossible. Even if you want to pay commission, there is no way to do that. However, what we do is we enable people to actually send this airtime. So you can actually pay them with airtime because they need airtime. Airtime is useful because they are using the mobile phone all the time. Their families are using the mobile phones. So you can pay their mobile phones, airtime. You can actually, in many of these countries, there is no banking infrastructure. You can use your airtime to pay your electricity bill, to pay your water bill. So it's a very good currency. It's a very good currency, and it's easy to transfer from one world to another. So this is a way to actually address this kind of solution. No? Mm-hmm. Essentially, it's similar to Bitcoin in a way. So we have a lot of attributes in common with Bitcoins, but with three big differences. First of all, very few people have Bitcoins in the world. Few million people have Bitcoins. When you receive Bitcoins, you don't really know what to do with them. And then there are some regulatory issues that is not totally clear. While there is 4,000 million people that have airtime, everyone knows what to do with the airtime when they get it because it's useful in itself. And actually, the regulation is very clear. It's a telecom regulation. So that is how we address this problem. Mm-hmm. And it works.
So one of the points is to make the job market liquid. As you say, if you don't have a means to receive payment, how can you have a job? I'm really interested in hearing your take on that, Sergio, from JobToday, how you are making the job market more liquid.
Okay. We are doing this by a social revolution, which is our own app. And why I call it a social revolution? Because we are addressing precisely the market you were mentioning, especially the SMEs in terms of business, and the blue-collar sector, as I already said. And this is a completely forgotten market in the past. We have LinkedIn, we have several platforms and job postings, but we didn't have, there was no tool who was here to help these two segments. The majority of the companies in the world, which are SMEs, 99% in Spain, and the low-profile job seekers. In Spain, we have huge unemployment, as you may know, 20%, more than 4 million people. And these people, unfortunately, are normally on the lower segment of the society. And JobToday is a very simple tool. It's an app that allows them to connect. So if you're an employer, you are a bartender, the owner of a restaurant, you may need people. And just by downloading the app, filling a super easy profile, you can get access to candidates that are close to you because all this is geolocalized and chat with them directly. So I'm talking about efficiency, I'm talking about speed, I'm talking about immediacy, immediate connection. This may seem normal, but it's not. How it's been in the past doing all this recruitment. Years ago, you had to post an ad in a newspaper, which was expensive and not many people saw it. And you had an email there, maybe, or a phone. Then the classified became online, and then you had these job boards, which you had to fill long forms if you were a candidate or a company, no matter what. And then you were putting your CV there if you were a job seeker, or the description of your company if you were a company, and then you were putting the offer and waiting for replies in days, weeks, hopefully not months. This is the past. And it's the past also for job seekers. Job seekers, what do they do in the past? They had to print their CV like this, go to in the street, find a place that they say, I'm looking for a chef, I'm looking for a waiter, and then they offer their CV, which normally remains somewhere down there and maybe in the rubbish basket. So this is the past. JobToday is bringing this revolution because it allows people to find a job or a candidate, if that's what they need, if they are a company, in less than 24 hours. We allow people to register immediately and find jobs very close to their companies, if it's a company, or to their houses, if it's a job seeker. And this has been a success. Why I say this? Because in less than a year, we've had more than 1.5 million registrations. This means just in Spain, 1.4 million people already has JobToday on their mobile phones and is absolutely engaged, is applying to jobs daily, and whenever they have it, of course, they stop, but if they need another job, they come very often. And we have 100,000 companies already in the platform regularly advertising their positions. And we calculate that we have exchanged and matched people with companies for more than 40,000 people. This means 40,000 more employments have, or job hirings have occurred in our platform in less than a year. This is huge. I'm talking about 4 million employments, 40,000. We are contributing 1% just in Spain, and we are also in the UK and France and more countries to come, to find a job in less than 24 hours. And this is the core of this presentation, is we empower people as the rest of my colleagues.
Do you have some similar numbers, Adam? How fast does it go for raising some money on your platform normally, those kind of metrics?
Yeah, so we're very focused on trying to make it as timely as possible, and from the pre-qual application experience to actually delivering the funds. A lot of the use cases that we support are trying to create liquidity for situations where you otherwise may not have like a transaction. So we're very interested in retail financing, we're interested in e-commerce, and so what we try to do with lending partners is actually enable instant pre-qualification. A lot of the demo that we're serving, a lot of times they're not aware of the financing options that may exist for them, and so they're not going to go around and submit applications to a bunch of different websites because they assume that they'll get rejected. And by being able to just integrate that into an existing flow and providing clear, immediate options, we kind of inject choice, we give people information so they can make informed decisions. And then we are actually working with the card networks to enable instant push to existing prepaid or debit cards, as well as instant issuance with virtual cards. And so that actually, versus like an ACH or a bank transaction, the money may not be there in time.
So we've heard these platforms, how they make markets more efficient, liquid, things go faster and so on. They exist, obviously, in, let's call it, our part of the world. How, in terms of your work, Agustín, in less developed parts of the world, how do you see these kind of platforms being rolled out and adopted and so on in developing nations?
Well, it depends much on the regulation of the actual country. I'm sure pretty much all the audience know about M-Pesa, the case of M-Pesa in Kenya, of mobile money. That's because a telecom operator, Safaricom, was allowed, there was no regulatory barriers to allow a telecom operator basically providing mobile money services. You know, in other countries, in many countries where we operate, it's very restricted what can places that are not bank do or not do. You know, in many places, even a banking correspondent is not even allowed. You know, so I mean, pretty much depends on the country. We've seen countries where there are some mobile money platforms being developed. Latin America, we were close to one specific project in Peru. But in others, I mean, just simple banking correspondent operations are not even allowed. But in our case, I mean, it's crucial, you know, to adopt these kind of technologies to increase outreach, which is one of the greatest challenges that microfinance institutions have, is basically how to increase outreach and to lower transaction costs. You know, I mean, we have one of our investees in India. Is very strong in technology, in all their field operations. Everything is automatized, from data gathering to a central processing center that pretty much makes the credit approval immediately. So turnover times can go as less as 48 hours to provide the credit to the client. So I mean, these kind of regulatory barriers will eventually move, because for microfinance institutions to survive, the adoption of ICT is going to be crucial. So if eventually the sector will talk with regulators to make these platforms available.
So some regulatory obstacles. Do you have some experience with that from your work?
Yeah, okay. No, the regulatory issue is one of the big issues in the financial institution sector. We are quite lucky in that sense, because we are away from the financial institutions, we are away from the financial regulations, so we don't have to have a license in all these countries. We operate under the telco regulation. That is very important for us. It enables us to deploy in all the countries at once. But you see actually that these financial institutions, they are having big problems actually to take their products to these emerging markets. I mean, it's, in a way they are trying to bring products that have worked here in developed markets for a long time into these emerging markets, where they probably don't need exactly these kind of products. So it's kind of a difficult issue to do, no? In fact, it's quite interesting. These products that they are taking to these places, I mean, bank account or credit, all these issues that are so popular over here, they try to take to these countries, are becoming less relevant even here now. So it seems that we are pushing our financial products to these emerging markets, while what we see here is we are bringing the financial solutions they have over there, over here. So now in Europe and in all these countries, it's becoming all this disruption about peer-to-peer lending, crowdfunding. These are the ways they actually work in emerging markets. I mean, when someone in Africa wants to buy a cow, he doesn't go to a bank, he goes to his peer arounds. And he actually has some kind of repayment, which is flexible. They can pay with assets, they can pay with the milk. I don't know, there are many different things. So it seems that while we are trying to push these things and we are not getting much traction getting our financial products in these emerging markets, they are having quite a lot of traction bringing their products to our countries. It's fun, it's funny, it's kind of interesting.
So I guess a call to action for us all is, learning what are the systems that works, figuring out how can we deploy them in emerging markets, in developing nations, to really, again, back to how we started out this panel, to really give people the dignity of themselves choosing how they want to spend their money, of them actually being able to receive money and to spend money, which is all the payments infrastructure, and of course the ability to have jobs move faster, and thinking about job placement as a liquid market. Our time here is coming up. So I'd like to turn to the audience if there are any specific questions. We have 1 minute left.
It was very interesting. Can you hear me? Okay. It was very interesting conversation. I just have a question for you. You said that, I understand Bitcoins are completely complex mode of payment, but you're saying, I assume you are taking dollar as your prime currency?
We take any currency. Actually, we do exchange currencies between countries. Essentially, what we do is, imagine you want to send, I don't know, €1 from here to pesos in Philippines. We'll charge you euro here, I will transfer that into pesos in Philippines, and he will receive pesos. Very interesting, since the transaction is done in real time, we don't even need to get a spread in the conversion rate. We can actually use the spot rate because it's a real-time transaction, so it's very convenient. There is no trick there.
Yeah, that was exactly my question. So you don't fall in the trap of the currency exchange rates.
We do follow we do done? Sorry?
You don't fall in the trap of
Oh, no,
currency
we
exchange
don't.
rate.
No,
So
we
it's
don't.
on the real-time basis.
It's all real time.
You
We
take
send
spot
it from
rates.
here now, and it's in real time. They get it in the Philippines, in Ecuador, or in Guatemala. It's real time transactions. Very-
Okay.
Thank you very much. That concludes our panel on financial inclusion and empowerment.
Thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed